So I'm going to go over the new Brooklyn Center Fire Department portable radio, the Motorola APX6000XE. The XE model is specifically made for the fire service. It has a few amenities for the firefighter with consideration of a gloved hand. First thing you're going to notice is this T-shaped design. It's meant so it doesn't slide through your hand easily and you can grip it. We have oversized knobs here, oversized buttons. We have a microphone on both sides. There's a microphone on this side. There really isn't a front or back. Microphone here. There's also a microphone here. The microphones are both wind porting and noise reducing. That's the same on the shoulder mic. The two microphones right here, both wind porting and noise reducing. In addition, both of these devices are intrinsically safe. They are, if you're in an IDLH environment and you're concerned about explosion, intrinsically safe means that these will not produce a spark when you turn them on or when you transmit, like your cell phone would. So I guess use at your own risk. And in addition, both of these can get wet, and in fact they are submersible up to 2 meters. So the next time we lose one in a lake, maybe we can recover it and actually use it again. The battery's different on this one. It's lighter, it's smaller, but it's more powerful. These are a smart battery, Impress 2 smart battery. They're over 2,600 milliamps, lithium ion battery. So they are should last through your whole shift. And one thing you'll notice about how they go on, there's little squeeze points at both sides of this battery, and there's these little wings that stick out when you squeeze them. When you put the battery in the portable radio, you simply slide it in, and then you just push until you hear it click.
Primary zone.
When you want to remove it, you just hit the squeeze points, give a little wiggle, comes right out. One thing that's nice about the form factor for this stuff is these are going to drop right in the charger. We no longer have to worry about the grooves that we had, the problems that we had with the old radios where you had to hit the grooves just right. These will be drop in. The way the contacts are here on the bottom, it's pretty simple, and we shouldn't have the trouble we had in the past. On the front of the radio here we have Brooklyn Center Fire Department identified, and then we have a 6-digit radio ID, 305869. That's repeated in the back here on the sticker, 305869. Brooklyn Center asset tag is right here. This 6-digit ID is important because that's what identifies the radio. It's unique to this radio. It's never going to expire. When you transmit on this radio, this number is transmitted, so everybody knows it's this radio. They know who the radio belongs to, etc. in the radio system. We can tell by looking at the statistics in the radio system that belong to this radio number. I know what talk group it was on. I know how many times it's transmitted. We can look up all of that information. And then, more importantly, if we ever lose this radio and we can't find it, we can have it shut off. Very similar to what you can do with your cell phone remotely. We can shut this off so it's more or less a doorstop and somebody can't use it or sell it for that matter. So put the battery in here. I'm going to go over the front of the radio. When you first turn the radio on, there's a light down here right next to the emergency button. That's going to flash red once, and then it's going to flash green a couple of times, and that's the radio affiliating with the system, if you're wondering what that light means. The first button that you're going to touch is the big knob here, and this is for turning it off and on, and it's also for volume. This knob is not easy to turn. It's got some resistance to it. That's as designed. They created it so, you know, if you rubbed up against it, if it was in your gear, it wouldn't accidentally turn the volume down on you. Right here you have the scan, ABC scan switch. A is for scan, B is scan off, and C is to program scan.
Scan on.
These radios can be left on scan. They have a default scan list of H-Fire main and BCOps2. If you choose to create more of a scan list and add things in the scan list, it's prudent to remove them once you're done with your shift. Others may not want to listen to everything you want to listen to, and it can get fairly confusing when you have a lot of things in your scan list. One important note on scanning, when you get to the fireground and you're assigned a talk group at the fireground, specifically if you're going in with an air pack inside a building, you want to turn scan off. You don't want to be screwing around with a scanning radio when you need to communicate for safety reasons. So turn scan off when you're on the fireground. It'll make your life a lot easier. This large knob here is a channel selector. Unlike in the mobile radio that will turn all the way around and just go right past one and go through all 16 talk groups in the zone, this stops at 1 and then it goes around and it stops at 16. By design, our number 1 talk group is the main, and then the 16 talk group, mostly across the board in the scan, in the fleet map, is fire emergency talk group. There's a couple of zones where it's a little different, but in our primary zones that we always use, that's the case.
Hennessy's fire temp. Hennessy's fire main.
There's a little switch here right in front that can go back and forth. This is non-functioning, it's not programmed. It will turn lights on the radio if your lights happen to have gone off, but this is for encryption, encryption on and encryption off, and none of our yellow or green radios use encryption, so that's not something you need to worry about. And then you have the emergency button here. It's just going to bonk because it's not programmed. We don't use that functionality. On the side here you have a purple button. That purple button turns lights on and off. Then you have the push to talk. This bottom button here locks the keypad or unlocks the keypad. And this top button here is not programmed. On the front of the radio, it's very similar to our old radios. It looks exactly the same. We have the home button, the navigation button, this little programming button, non-functioning. Home button always takes you back. No matter where you are, you can be on any talk group in any zone, and you punch this down, it's going to get you back to the primary zone and position number 1 on our main. So that the home button is always something. If you're lost on this radio, hit the home button to get back to where you want to be. These 3 buttons here navigate what you see on the screen. The very first thing you see on the screen is zone. When you hit zone, it's going to give you the list of all the zones. We no longer use ABCD. We had character limitations in the past, now we don't. So now we have a primary zone, a fire zone, a law zone, a county zone, a metro zone. There's one that says 8C and 7C. Those are SOA channels and some conventional 800 megahertz channels. They're in here because of standard. They're required by standard. And then we have the Minnesota zone. And then if you keep going down, it just goes back to primary. So those are all your zones. No more A, B, C, and D. They're a little more intuitive, but you're going to have to get used to them. You select your zone here, and then go up here to change your talk group. The next one is a nuisance button. It's not programmed. We're not using that one. The next button is mute. That simply mutes the channel announcements, the talk group announcements. So it takes those voice announcements off. It doesn't mute the radio in any way. Next is your scan list. If you want to change your scan list, you click scan. You go through here and you'll see the zone and the talk group you want to grab. If the little Z appears on the top, then you've put it in your scan list, or you can remove it from your scan list. The next one is the call button. We don't use the call button by standard operating procedure. That's for calling radio to radio and not over the air. It is a private call, really. We don't use that by standard operating procedure in any way, so I'm not going to talk about it. It's in here because it's in the standard programming that Hennepin Sheriff does. The next one is clock. If you want to see how good if you want to change the clock, you can edit things, change what you need to change. And then finally is battery. Battery is where you can see your battery life and how many times it's been charged, etc. So this side is our programming interface, and it's also the interface for the shoulder mic. This is a little different. It's a little backwards from where it was on the old radios. This little clip here clips in up here, and then we have a ready-made screw here that can be finger tightened. One thing to point out is on the shoulder mic interface, this little clip here that clips in there is plastic that can break. They used to make the radio where it was a little tab here that broke, and then you had to change the whole radio case. Now they put it on the shoulder mic cable, but if you do break this, we have to replace this entire cable, unfortunately. And I'm going to venture to guess it's probably over $100 because it's got Motorola's name on it. So to put this on, you simply put the top tab in first, like that, hold it down, and then you finger tighten the screw. So there's absolutely, okay, I'm having trouble with it all of a sudden. There's absolutely no reason to use a screwdriver on this. Finger tighten only. Nice and solid just by finger tightening. That way, when I come to take it off, I can take it off easily by finger. No reason to use a screwdriver on this. Once the shoulder mic is on, this is our shoulder mic. Top of the shoulder mic, it mimics the radio. You should look at this thing as it's mimicking the radio. Whatever you do on the shoulder mic, it's doing on the radio itself. So your volume control, if you change volume, it's going to do it on the radio. That's what your radio will be at when you take the shoulder mic off. This button here is the emergency button. It mimics the emergency button on the radio and is not programmed, so you don't have to worry about that. You have a light right here, a little reflective tab here, and then there's a light. That light turns on with this button. You push it down and hold it in, and there you have a light. It does nothing else. That light is about as powerful as what's on my iPhone, so I'm not sure if we'll use that much. It would use battery power if you turn it on and leave it on, so just like a dome light would in your car, so you want to avoid that. On the side here you have volume up and down, and you actually can hear that it's doing what it's doing. This button here will turn the lights off and on your radio. That's handy if this is, down on your hip and you don't want to touch this and you just have a shoulder mic. You can turn it on so you can see what's going on in the dark. So, and then you have your push to talk. On the back here, we have a nice little D-ring now, which is nice. That D-ring is you can clip it onto your gear, which is cool. This moves, and then you have your typical clip there. The other thing this D-ring is nice for is we no longer have to clip things to the antenna. We can simply slide this on like so, especially when they're in the charger. So there's no reason to clip things to the antenna anymore. Use the D-ring, just do that. It's real handy. It's why they made it. So that's the shoulder mic. One of the things you notice with the battery and the form factor we have here, there's no clip on it, right? So they have this handy little thing that gives us a clip. It looks cheesy because it's plastic, but these are pretty hardy and they don't break very easily, so that's a good thing. Works with the shoulder mic on. The screen goes to the back. All this thing does is the radio simply slides into a click. It doesn't come out easily. You have to push it out. So slides into a click. You have access to all the buttons, the shoulder mics there, and now you have your clip if you care to use a clip. I'm not sure where we're going to store these with the chargers, but we'll figure it out. These can't be on when this is dropped in the charger. So there are other carry options available to you. Some of us have shoulder straps. This radio will fit in the shoulder strap just like the 2500 did. Also, there are leather belt clips, and the leather belt clips can also work well for these radios. So some of our members, some of our firefighters have both of those. I have both of them. If you want to see them and you're wondering if you should get them, you can get them at the uniform shop. They're not on our uniform allowance, but if it's a personal preference thing. So if this putting this in your pocket or putting this in your turnout coat is not good, you have this option to clip on your belt, and then you have the other carry options out there. All you got to do is remember the model number is the Motorola APX6000XE radio when you're looking for exactly which holder you might want for yourself, for your own personal use.